Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Over the next few minutes I'm going to be covering the relative comparison charts. Now this is a great way to compare multiple symbols or instruments over various time frames on a like-for-like percentage basis. So on the screen here this is what I mean by a relative comparison chart. I've got a chart of Microsoft and IBM. So this is on a daily basis. The date range is the last year. So a year ago today, they both started at 0. And then that's the relative percentage change since that date. So Microsoft is up 36.8% and IBM is up only 9% over that time frame. So this is how we, there's various ways you can open up charts in Optuma, but let's show you this example first. So click on the new menu. Now this is an example of a multi-code chart. So we'll go down to that option and the top one there, relative comparison chart. And this brings up the same security selection window as we've seen previously, but now we can manually type some symbols in here to compare them against each other. So I'm just going to start typing some of the sector spider ETFs, so XLF, and then hit enter or double click. And as you see, when I do that, it gets listed or added to the column on the right hand side. So that's XLF, XLE, I won't do all of them, XLK, and then XLI, for example. And then when I've got my list ready, click the open button there, and it opens like this in the default settings. So by default, it's daily over the last year, but what I can do is change that, click the time frame at the top of the screen there, change it to weekly, and also change the date range from last year to any of those selected, so let's say the last 5 years, or I can set a selected date. So when I choose that, that date pops up there with a little calendar, and then I can click to, let's make it 2010, January the 1st. Some other settings that we can change. You can see that the ticker symbols there are against the line, but I can right click, go to the, right click on one of those lines, go to the pencil, and we can change the label size, make it bigger. We can change it from the code or the symbol to the name. These are quite long names, so we probably don't want to use those, or we can have name and code. So I'm just going to use the code, and I'm also going to tick the show in price scale option, and that easily shows us the values of each of those instruments. One other thing I'm going to do is make that the number of blank bars between the most recent or the end of that line closer to the price scale. So I'm going to change the blank bars property from 100 to, let's say, 30, and see how that looks. So again, the properties panel on the left hand side, we can change some more things in here. So when I click on each individual line, you'll see I just clicked on the green XLF line there, and this has their own separate properties. So when I click the red XLK, you'll see the properties box on the bottom left there change to XLK. So I can change the line width of each individual line to make them stand out more, or I can change change it from a line, or the line style from solid to dashed. So again, very customizable for the look and the feel of the chart. And we can also add charts or lines to this. So on the right hand side, by default, this panel, what we call the structure panel, if you haven't seen that video yet, I recommend you go and check that one out. But this is on the right hand side, and you can show it and roll it away by that arrow halfway up the price scale. But this shows us the list of the symbols. So where at the bottom there it says type code or name to add an item to the chart. So I'm going to add XLP. So I'm just going to click there, start typing, there's XLP, and that's now been added to the chart at 107.75. And likewise, if I want to delete charts, like energy has had a awful time of it lately, we can just mouse over XLE in that structure panel, and when that little cross pops up, we can just delete it like that. Or if we don't want to delete it, we just want to temporarily hide it, we can just untick the box. So I'm going to close or hide XLI, and as I click and tick that box, it gets removed or put back on. Another example of how to open these charts. What we can do is I'm going to bring up the security selection window, and instead of typing them individually, I'm going to expand the ASX shares folder and also the S&P folder, and under there they have an indices folder and sector indices level 1. So when I click that folder, these are the sub-indexes, if you like, for the sectors in the ASX 200. Now I've clicked on that folder, I can open list as, and you'll see the option there, open relative comparison chart. Or what I can do is right click on the actual folder and open folder as relative comparison chart. And because I already had a chart open, it's floating on top of the existing one. So I'm just going to click and drag that header bar right up to the top until that gets shaded at on the tabs there. I'm just going to drop it, and now that those sectors have all been added together in their own separate chart. And again, I can take off or hide or change all the properties as required. So that's a quick overview of how you can create and set up your relative comparison charts. As always, any questions, please let us know at help.optuma.com or support@optuma.com. Thanks very much.